ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਇੱਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦ ਜਪ ਆਦ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦ ਸੱਚ ਹੈਪੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਵੀ ਸੱਚ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। Today we are going to go through Saruktavali chapter 14. Chapter 14 is all about teachings. Kaviji shares some really beautiful teachings, and they say these are some of the really main big sikya that can remove all of the sins very quickly. Kaviji says, to start off with, that where there is a longing discipline, someone that has really good intentions, there often most likely a loving guru cannot be found. And where there is such a great guru, someone that can actually value that, good students are not found. To find both an individual who has knowledge of the Maryada, of Vidya, and the meaning is rare, whether they are in the guru or in the students. A true guru is like a medicine that works, that's both sweet and it destroys the illness at its root. Kaviji then describes that when a tree has no fruit, a bird leaves. When a forest is on fire, it makes all the animals run away, and they do not stay. If there is a garland of flowers, when it doesn't have a fragrance anymore, then we take it off. If a sarovar no longer has water, then the creatures around it leave. Even a prostitute will leave a man that no longer has money. And people leave their king and their countries and the whole kingdom if such a king is to lose from their grace. And in this way, people are attached to things because of their needs, because of their individual reasons. It's not because of love. So the bird is not in love with that specific tree or with the flowers or with the fragrance. And in that way, we use things for our purpose rather than because of a higher reason, because of love. Kaviji then shares that cattle, basu, and animals are not seen as valuable because first we have to pay for them, and then they only make something, whether it's money, milk, and from that milk we get butter, makhan, but that's only because we paid for them and we're continuing to actually pay for them with their feed. And so they're not considered valuable. It's just an exchange in a sense. And also when they die, then there's even more cost and there's a loss. Then there is gold. Gold is seen as half valuable because when we are in a financial struggle, that gold can actually have some value in being sold off. However, it's only half valuable because it did require initial cost to actually acquire it. Thirdly, food is always seen as valuable because it's always in use and it's always desired by others. It doesn't cost that much and it's always going to come in handy. Then, those who stay by their friends. So not people who are very extroverted and have lots of superficial friends, but those who just stay by their friends through thick and thin. Those who have a cooling nature. And those who have education. Kaviji says these are the things that are most valuable and wealth for a person. And these are the type of gun that we are lacking in society now. But these are the three things that will be considered the most valuable, most wealthy. If we can stick by our friends, if we can have a cooling nature and good education. Then Kaviji says, without ongoing studies, without ongoing revision, without ongoing application of our education, the value of that education itself does not increase. And then therefore that education itself cannot become wealth. So education cannot be stagnant. If we have learned something, whether in a worldly perspective or a spiritual perspective, we need to be applying it so that we can actually make use of it. Without any knowledge, without any wealth, no one becomes a friend. Without any friends, we have no worldly strength. And in a sense also, Guru is always our arm and always our strength. But if we see it from a worldly perspective, the stronger relationships we have with people, the more that we will have in the world. Then Kaviji says, People stay happy and praise a person until their needs are met. But when their needs are no longer met, then they have no longer a reason to stay there. For example, someone might be staying at your home and renting in a room, and they might be keeping a good relationship until then. But as soon as that need is not met, for example, if the rent increases or you can no longer have them in that home, then I've seen that people don't even keep that relationship anymore. They don't even talk to them, and that relationship is no longer there. And that's again going back to the previous point, the fact that we are always attached to people because of our own reasons, not because of love. But here there is also another point that when we ask for something, then even if we have something good in a good virtues in a good relationship, even that can be destroyed, because the nature of relationships should always be giving, two people giving. However, when we ask, then we destroy that balance. And as dharmic people, we should always be in the favor of giving rather than asking for people for things. Then Kaviji says, a mantra that has been instilled in us. So some sort of abhyas that we have gained. A medicine. And medicine is used here because think of a placebo effect. You don't really always want to tell people what the medicine is because it could just be a placebo that works for them. Siddhiya, powers that you gain. Finances that you have. Personal relationships with a spouse, so sharing intimate details about that. Charity that you have done, and serving those that are less fortunate. Kaviji says all these things should be done without public knowledge. And consuming bad foods like alcohol, firstly, of course, should be avoided, but secondly, that should also be avoided in public, and we should not be sharing that with other people. Kaviji then says, if at some point your wealth is stolen, for example, because of your own gambling or because of a loss of money or anything like that. Next, if you're having a bad time at home, if there is mental suffering, if there is being a victim of theft or deceit, if any of these type of situations should occur, one should keep these type of situations for themselves. And this might be a little bit interesting, so I'm just going to unpack it a little bit more. If you share too much about these nature of your wealth being stolen, you put yourself in a vulnerable place with society. And if you're having a bad time at home, same happens. And also, you don't know at what point some people might turn against you and they might start using that information against you. Even with mental suffering, you put yourself in a position of vulnerability, but also your credibility also goes. And being a victim of theft and deceit, there's that credibility factor and that reliability factor. So these type of things should really be shared only with people when you feel like by sharing it, it's going to actually maybe save another person from having harm. Because, for example, you might say, oh, there's thefts in this area. It's happened to me. Just be more cautious. But if you're going out of your way sharing these type of things without any sense of who to share it to, then that is no good. Next, Kaviji says, employment, so your working hours and your working conditions, personal intimate relations, borrowing monies, and a wife that is expecting. So if she's pregnant, these situations initially give bliss, but then afterwards give much pain. So this is also a type of teaching that Kaviji has given in this chapter about teaching. Next great teaching that Kaviji shares with us is that we should always keep good relations with our cook, with the poet, so the people, or we could say the journalists, the people that write, the doctor, the king, who in our times would be, I guess, the prime minister and such, one who is shastri, who has weapons, one who knows about your home situation, your master, which in our sense is unfortunately our employer, our guru, so that is also in this text, it's like our Vidya Guru, but also, of course, our ultimate Guru. And also, interestingly, fools, because you never know when they're going to open their mouth and what they're going to say. These are the people that you should always keep a good relation with and not anger them. Because, if your mom's cooking for you and you make her upset, then it's just going to kind of ruin that whole experience. writing with the poet as well, the doctor, you should always keep them on your good side. Always keep the king, in our sense, the prime minister and the legal system on our good side. One who you know is going to be Shastri. Like all of these, when you think about it, it really makes sense. But it's good to see it more clearly written out as well. Next teaching that Goviji says is that a wealthy individual, a king, one who does lot of tap, so lots of penance, and one who is very educated, and one who is also very foolish, the religious person and the guru and the enemy. These are the 8 type of people that if you are a content person, you should not try to question or talk back to these type of people. You should not try to consider ourselves as equal. We can just say Satbhajan. So a wealthy individual, of course, they might talk about things and get you trapped into this comparison and greed game. A king and Tap, one who's very educated. Interestingly, also one who's very foolish. That's also very important. So if someone is being very foolish, there's no point trying to, correct them or anything like that. No point trying to question them. Just say Satbhajan. Religious person, guru, and the enemy as well. So if you know that someone has it out against you. Next important teaching that Goviji gives us in this chapter is that if we cannot do Vichar, so Vichar is an interesting word. There's not really a direct translation in English. It comes up a lot as contemplate. Vichar means really the whole process of talking about it with other people, contemplating it in your mind, applying it in your life. It's that whole churning of the gyan. So if we cannot do Vichar, if we cannot comprehend that vidya, then the vidya itself will not be of use. Goviji says rather it can actually destroy us because we won't know how to understand it and apply it in our life, and we will not be able to use it. Goviji says that intellect must be clean to gain new knowledge, without which they will not be able to recall that new knowledge. Because if you think about it, if you're already filled, if your panda is already filled, no matter what you go to learn, you're only going to have stored what you already have, and so you're only going to be able to recall what you already have. And Goviji says, gives an example of those 4 people who were eaten by a lion due to their vidya, but lack of vichar, lack of practical knowledge. And so Bhai Singh Ji more openly shared what that Sakhi was. So the Sakhi was like this. There were 4 pandits and they were going through a jungle and they saw a dead lion in a cage and they thought, this is a good time for us to test our knowledge that we've learned. And so one of the pandits identified, this is a lion. So he used his vidya to identify it. The second used a mantra to gather the bones. It should be gather the bones. And then another used a mantra to gather the flesh. And then another used it to summon it to life. And all of them, of course, thought, look at our vidya, look at what we can do. But then, of course, the lion came to life and instantly ate them all. And so that is that lack of vichar of actually, even if we do have vidya, how do we actually apply it in our life? And in order to do vichar, we have Gurbani, we have Shastra, we have Gurmukhs, we have Sad Sangat, we have Mahapurush to ask and really figure out how to apply it. Kaviji says, those who have the ability to do vichar, to really implement vidya the right way, only they have strength. That is the strength of vidya. Without it, it's of no use. And they give another example in the way the lion was killed by a rabbit. So Bhai Singh Ji also shared about this story more openly as well. And in this story, what happens is there's a lion that's rampant in the jungle and he's eating all of the animals. And now all the other animals in the jungle, they're also scared. How do we go out? And so all the animals, they get together, they do a meeting, they say, we're going to invite the lion as well. So they invite the lion and they say, look, lion, you're getting old, what we'll do is we'll have you sitting here because it's your retirement time and we'll just give you a sacrifice so you can just keep being fed. And in that way, at least like they'll have the peace of their whole jungle is their main ultimate aim. And the lion is like, yeah, okay, that sounds good to me because now just sitting here, I'm going to get my food. So that's what happens, and there's some sacrifices that go through, and then one time there is a rabbit that is being sacrificed, and that rabbit thinks, how can I get out of this? And so the rabbit decides, I'm going to ask the lion to go for a walk. And so by doing that, I might like tell it a story, and it's thinking up a way. And so rabbit goes, it's being sacrificed to the lion, and somehow the lion then starts going for a walk with the rabbit, and they start walking and walking and walking, and the rabbit leads the lion to another lion. And the rabbit tells the other lion, oh, there's this other lion, and you're sitting here being all calm and normal, but this other lion, he's like now the alpha, and no one even knows about you. So he plays this game, the rabbit, and therefore one lion destroys the other lion. Then the rabbit takes the lion to a pond and shows that lion its reflection, and then confuses it by thinking it's another lion, and then it gets captured by itself. And so in that way, the rabbit actually saves itself through his own vidya, but also his ability to apply it. So then the next teaching that Goviji shares is to pay back a debt. So even if you have any small debt that you owe someone, $50, $20 to your mom, to your brother, or bigger debts, it's hard, but this is what Goviji says: to pay back a debt alone, to destroy an enemy. And that enemy could be a person, but it could be a situation as well. Like, say if someone is talking against you, how to squash that situation quickly, and to put out a fire. These three things a knowledgeable person should not delay at all. We should do these things very quickly. And in the same way, I guess the clever rabbit found a way out. Next, marrying a daughter, doing a dharmic task, and to learn vidya, and to earn an honest living. These good thoughts should be held at the earliest opportunity, because if we delay these things, what's going to happen is in each moment our body is only going to get weaker. Our body is going to be dying. It's more so our death, and there is no opportunity right now. And that's what Kabirji says in their Gurbani as well. This is very important. There are lots of things that we get very busy in our day-to-day life, but there are certain things that we need to prioritize and squash instantly. Like, there are certain things that we have to prioritize. And so to have it written out like that is very helpful, where it's paying back a debt, destroying an enemy, putting out a fire. These two things, always prioritize them if ever any of these situations come up. The next great teaching that Goviji gives us is to have a spouse that constantly argues, to have a home that doesn't fulfill our needs, to have a body in constant suffering, and to have an unjust king. These predicaments can be considered as hell, because a spouse that's constantly arguing, whether it's the wife or the husband, only the other partner will know what is their suffering at home, what they're going through, because that's a type of situation that they normally don't feel comfortable to share with anyone else. Then at home, it's really hard for people to invite people to their home, or to have sangat and these type of things, because only they know that type of suffering. Then to have a body that's in constant suffering, a person that's in physical pain would only know of that pain themselves. And the people that live in an unjust king, an unjust rule, an unjust government, only they would know the type of suffering that they go through. And with that, chapter 14 ends, where Goviji has shared some of the great main teachings. And if applied, they say these stanzas will bring liberation, bliss, and peace. And that's where it ends. So I'll just stop the recording and then we can have chat. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह।